There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
As well.
Marta Marie, I want to introduce you to my very dear friend, Slobodan Vujasic. He's been Emma's, he's the founder, one of the founders of BDA, together with Vladimir Dobrevic. I don't know if Buddy is joining us tonight.
Actually, he's there. I just noticed.
Okay, great. Okay. So the two of them founded BDA together, very experienced physios, very experienced with cerebral palsy treatment. And they've basically, I've known them for as long as my daughter's been alive, basically. And they've meant a lot to us. Yeah, and and Slobodan, this is Marta Marie Corner. She is a lady I met a little while ago who herself has got cerebral palsy, is a cerebral palsy survivor, or how would you say that? Somebody who lives with
I would say, basically, I'll give you a bit of a background. My mom was about 7 months pregnant when I was born, and the cord was around my neck. And about a year later, they discovered what they call, I've got the slow death syndrome. Basically, in my case, what happened was the valve of my brain wasn't fully developed. And then they had to insert a BP shunt, but the prognosis was very poor. They told my parents, I've only got a 10% chance of surviving. And if I survive, I'll end up in a home for disabled. And I won't be able to walk, talk, dress myself, or feed myself. But yeah, I think both my parents were teachers at that stage, so they knew about my developmental delays, that I had several delays. And they went ahead with the operation. And yeah, I had epileptic fits over the years. More, I outgrew that as well, and I'm off medication since the age of 18. And yeah, just about a year ago, I mean, I'm 50, but I feel 25. My shunt started giving problems, and they actually had to remove it. It was infected, and yeah, I'm blessed. It wasn't necessary to insert another programmable shunt, as they initially thought they had to do. They discovered actually that my shunt was disconnected for several years. And about 2 days after the operation, they did a CT scan, no brain bleed, no pressure, everything is perfect.
Okay, thank you for introduction.
Pleasure.
Vladimir and I are the co-founders of the BDA therapy. We are a physical therapist, and I'm also occupational therapist. I mean, the two of us are occupational therapists, and I'm also physical therapist, like middle school. And when we finished our education, we immediately started working with in the hospital for cerebral palsy kids. Actually, I was volunteering there. Vladimir was actively working there, and immediately after the school, we were very much, actually during our studying time, we were very much interested in this field. And the reason why I was so interested was up to the moment that I came to the hospital and I saw the kids with cerebral palsy, in a way I could imagine through what the person is going through. For example, if you see somebody who had like a broken leg or pain in the hip or pain in the spine, you can see that it affects the way how they move and how they move, how they walk, how they do different things. And somehow you can imagine that through your own body. Like, for example, if somebody have a problem with the knee, you can somehow imagine through what he is going through, even if I don't have the same issue. But somehow I can imagine because I can relate to that. But the kids with cerebral palsy, there was really, I could not grab to anything. Like literally, I could not imagine how they feel in their own skin. Like if I see a person have a back pain, I could imagine that he feel the pain in his back and he moved the way how he moved because of the pain. But when there is this kind of neurological disorder, there is basically nothing much to grab on. So that's basically kind of stuck me in this constantly thinking about that, like how they feel, and more about curiosity. And then you start to read and you start to kind of investigate. And the funny thing is, the more I read, the more I have difficulties to connect, because most of the things is actually at the level of neurological definitions. Like, for example, why the child kind of keep the arms in this position because of some reflexes of the neck, or for example, why this, why that, you get reflexes, you get some kind of, basically just some descriptions which are neurological. And still, it didn't really give me this kind of feeling of what they are going through and what do they actually feel, because I always knew that the child with cerebral palsy is not really feeling the brain damage. Like, it's not something that he would say, oh, you know, my arm is in this position because of the asymmetrical neck reflex. He's going to describe in some other ways. And what most of them through the talk will describe, it will be through either it's some kind of burning pain, or either it's through some weakness, or either it's through some inability to move something even if they want to move, or either it's through it's simply very difficult to do it, like it's heavy. Like literally, if you put something heavy on my back and you see me walking and I tell you, look, it's heavy, and then somebody tell me, no, it's not heavy, you have a brain damage, and then it's okay, I have a brain damage, but still it's very heavy to me. So basically, this kind of not really enough of understanding drive the two of us to constantly search for different ways, different approaches, different way of studying things. So of course, here in Europe, the Bobat, Vojta, that's very, like, how to say, well-known therapies. It's something that is done in our local hospitals. So we started from there, and then we move on further. And the interesting thing happened when we actually get introduced with the biomechanical way. Basically, that came through ABR therapy. Leonid Bloom is the one that actually introduced the structural thing to the whole picture, which we didn't really thought so much about that. The whole developmental thing was described through, everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the whole thing is basically described, developmentally of the child is described through what the child can do or cannot do and what is supposed to do. But there is also this other development thing, and that's about how the structure is going through a very simple baby structure to more developed structure. And the thing is that these two things are completely interconnected and determining each other. So then from there on, we started to kind of combine different things because we did other courses, and then we came to the approach which is a biomechanical BDA, biomechanical developmental approach, which is very much, how to say, exactly that, like trying to get this connection between the structure and function. Basically, when we focus on the movement, we think about how is that movement going to influence further development of the structure. But when we think about the structure, we think about energy efficiency of the function. So basically, let's put it like this. If we put a child in some functional positions, or we try to get some kind of reactions of the child, it's not just enough for the child to do it. Because if that's the only thing that is important, the child will eventually come to the solution by itself. And that's one very important thing that nobody really like to talk about, and that is the spontaneous development of the child. The big question is what would really happen if you don't do any therapy? If there is no therapy at all, what would happen to the child? And the fact is the child will develop. So even if you don't do absolutely anything with the child, the small child want to move, want to interact, want to do something. And if something is available, the child will explore that, and it will always follow energy efficiency. It will not follow what is correct. It will follow always what is available, what is easy, what is something that the child doesn't really have to engage itself so much, just like we are doing. And then the thing is, the question is then, what is really the goal of the therapy? Because let's put it like this, for fact, the child will develop, and the biggest influence on the child's structural development is everything that the child is doing after the therapy. Like you can, for example, if the child is, let's put it like this, if the child is not at the level of spontaneously walking, and then during the 30 minutes, the parents are doing a lot of walking exercise with the child, after 10 days, they are going to see for sure improvements, but only during the therapy. but the rest of the day, the child is not really in the situation, in position to walk. So the biggest impact on the child development, when I say development, I'm talking about structural development, how the spine is going to develop, how the hips, pelvis, everything. The biggest impact on the structural development will have what the child is doing the rest of the day, like what the child is doing when it's just being on the floor, when the child is like just sleeping or breathing, for example. And on our opinion, the therapy need to exactly change these spontaneous activities. So the focus is not supposed to be on what the child is not doing and trying to teach the child what to do, but it's more about influencing the child's current spontaneous activities. Basically, how to put what the child is already doing on another level. And that is something which is not so much, how to say, attractive, because in most of the therapies, when the parents come, they can see during the therapy a very big, like a show, you know, like some kind of performance where their child is in some positions which is not usually, and it's mimicking basically what the healthy child is supposed to do. So it's creating this internal feeling we are practicing what we want to see in the future. But the whole thing is about that. This is also a little bit, on our opinion, naive. What is the biggest, again, I repeat, what have the biggest impact on the child further development is what is the child doing continuously during the day. So the therapist should focus exactly on those small things, on the things that the child is basically doing constantly. How the child is walking, crawling in the way how it's crawling, walking the way how it's walking, and it should basically focus on energy efficiency, not on what is correct, what is not correct. It's only about to make something energy efficient that the child can do it for a longer period of time. And the way how to make something energy efficient is basically deload some structures that the child is overusing and introduce other things and abilities for the child to be able to incorporate them in their function. So only when the child is able to distribute the load to many other structures in the body, then the child starts to feel, I'm stronger. I can do this for a longer period of time. And when the child feels comfortable in the positions and situation that it's constantly during the day, then the child is the one that is supposed to open the door towards the new function. So basically, our whole thing is about who is basically like teaching the child to do something new. The motivation have to come only from the child. And that will happen when the child becomes very comfortable in what he's already doing. So for that, we are using different kind of things, different kind of approaches. We are using, let's put it like this. We are looking at how the child body is reacting during its own spontaneous activities. Now, these spontaneous activities are always there. It could be even that the child is laying on the back and just breathing. So if the child is just breathing, we're looking how the child chest is moving during that breathing. Because if the child chest is, for example, the child inhaled the air and the chest just collapsed, then we know that this chest is not going to develop in proper way. So then we think about what can we do with this chest so when the child inhales the air, that the chest expands. So we follow the child breathing and we try to change the tissue response. When I say the tissue, I'm meaning the connective tissue. The connective tissue is creating the integrity, and that is very important even for breathing. Because when the diaphragm is moving up and down, the chest will react to the change of pressure inside of the chest. If the chest is very soft, like with many kids, he's not going to expand, he will collapse. But by manipulating with the tension in the connective tissue, with the hands, which is creating tension and pressure, we can basically create during that activity different tissue response. So when the child inhales the air, it will just feel like the chest is getting bigger. So we are strengthening this kind of responses of the connective tissue in order to get these changes that we want to see, which are completely connected with the child spontaneous activity. So it's basically a strategy, and this strategy needs time. So it's not something that you're just going to teach the child, because it takes time for this tissue to change. It's connected with the, we can now go into some scientific things like, but we don't have to go there. So let's put it like this. Whatever the child body is doing for a long period of time, it will affect the way how the child is reacting and changing. So if you have a good strategy with the clear goals in mind, which are based on very good testing, which are measurable after some period of time, then we can see what we want and connect that with the changes that we want to see. And basically, that's what we are doing. On our courses, we make a lot of testings. We we spend about 30 minutes just testing the child, and we are recording everything. And then after some period of time, we retest what happened. And for us in BDA, it's not just important the new thing that the child did. Like, for example, the parents would come and say, oh, my child started to crawl. I'm thinking like, okay, fine, but you know, maybe it will happen even if he didn't do anything. Maybe it would happen just spontaneously. But let's see what happened with this test. Because when your child was in this position, there was no movement in that part of the spine. So let's see what happened now. So when we isolate through this test, we can actually see what happened because of the therapy. We become more exact in understanding what is the therapy effect, and then we can think about how did it influence the child development. So that's basically what is BDA in short. You know, like a connection between structure and function, and I'm there to answer all your questions. We can go into details and, you know, go further.
This BDA would, for example, like me, all these years I went for what we call physiotherapy. I went to see NDP physio and neurological that works with people specifically with cerebral palsy. If I wanted to go for BDA treatment, how would that work?
So
for me as an adult?
You as an adult, I mean, since you're in South Africa, you have one option. If you're in Serbia, we have two options. So one way would be to come to our center where our therapist would work with you. And then they will teach you how to do a certain exercise by yourself, or somebody who will be provider of the therapy, like some of your helper, will basically be the one that will do these things on you. In South Africa, you would come to the course where we would do a lot of tests on you. We would look how you are moving, how your body is reacting to that. Then we would isolate different parts of the body, see how they are moving. And it's not just based on the movement, it is also based on the integrity. So our tests are not just at the level how you move the spine in this and that direction, what is happening with the neck, do you have lumbar lordosis or not? It is also how your body is responding to pressure. For example, by pressing something, how it's responding to the load. Because in all the situation, all the time, since we are on the planet Earth, we are constantly under some kind of interaction with the floor. It's not possible to escape that. So in different positions, in different situations, we want to see how your structure is responding to load. Because even without any kind of brain control, just under the weight and pressure, your body will respond to that. Let's put it very simple. You know, let's say you put the weight of your body to your foot, and your foot have an arc. You put weight, the arc change. How it changes. So when we put our foot on the ground, we never really use a lot of our muscles to control what's going to happen with the arc. It just what happened, the pressure create movement, movement create a connective tissue respond, connective tissue respond guide that movement. So then we are looking, how is this happening? So then from there, we start to manipulate with the connective tissue tension by changing the tension by releasing some areas, or trying to strengthen and stabilize. So then what would happen is on the courses, we would examine very good, then we will determine what would be your strategy for the next period of time. In South Africa, we are holding courses every 6 months, which is all the way from 2016. We were constantly coming. We just didn't come once during the Corona time. And then you would do these therapies. Some of them you would do it by yourself, and some exercises, unfortunately, you would need somebody to help you. We try when somebody can do things on themselves to do most of the therapies exercise by itself. But unfortunately, for the good effectiveness, some areas you simply cannot reach. It's very difficult to be precise. So you would need somebody to help you.
And for example, I've got a few years ago, they discovered that I've got 2 slip discs in my back, which slipped quite severely, like more than 50%. But thank goodness with physio and swimming and walking, I recovered, and the brace. And about a year ago, 2 of the discs in my neck actually slipped. Obviously, this is some stuff I would mention to them beforehand, that they are aware of it before they start with the assessment. Am I right? Just that they know exactly what's going on.
You see, the thing is, if you, for example, go to some therapies which is mostly focusing on the people with neurological disorder, he would really not know what to do with slip disc. Let's be real, you know. And then you would go to the other guy, which is actually focusing on pain management. But you see, the reason why this is the case is because most of the therapies are divided in the one that is facilitating the movement. They mostly work with the neurological patient, and you have the one that work on the structure, like osteopathy or, you know, the other one. So let's put it like this, like you have this, the one that focus on the structure, the one that are facilitating the movement. If you go to the one that work mostly with the neurological patient, they don't really know what to do about that. And then if you really want to manage your pain, you go to the other guy. But BDA is in between. BDA is completely, because you see, I always thought when I was working with the kids with cerebral palsy, I always thought I have to know to work with the people who have pain problems. Like I cannot consider myself to be a very good therapist if I don't know what to do with somebody who have pain issues. So in my private practice, I said, this is where I'm going to completely focus, like, because we were used to work doing courses and other things with people, usually with the kids that have cerebral palsy. But then I had private practice near my home. And this is where I said, here, I'm going to try really my best to be good in these kind of things, like slip disc, the problem with the knee, shoulders, and so on. And that's basically where many things, many ideas came from, because I realized actually that when I started to focus on the impaired structure with individuals that doesn't have cerebral palsy, I started to see them even with the kids that have these kind of issues, and later they actually do have, like unfortunately happened to you, slip disc and so on. So with this therapy, actually, we can be very effective even with the patient that have pain problems, especially connected with the structural impairments. And we do have some patients which are coming to us only because of that.
Okay. And then from what is the youngest age that a patient can do this BDA, will go for this BDA treatment?
Well, you know, I believe it's already starting from 3-4 months. But the thing is, it's very difficult. Let's put it like this. If the parents have a child that is 3 months old, they don't even know what's going on with the child. Like they will rarely come to us in that period. Because, you know, the child is not really supposed to in the first 3 months to do much of the things. So they are waiting and they want to see what is really going to happen. In this period of time, they're not investigating alternative therapies like at this moment we are. So most of our patients are coming to us from 8 months further. But for example, we had situations, and we are encouraging whoever we can that they can come to us even when the child is very small, because we can do certain things even when everybody is waiting to see what the child will be able to do or not, because we can always work on the child breathing. And the child breathing is very important, not just because of the oxygen. It's important because it will develop the chest. And we can see that with many kids, this kind of a form of the chest is not so good. And the form of the chest will influence the form of the spine, because these two structures are working together. So if the chest have a very poor development, like the upper part of the chest very narrow, the lower ribs very wide, it will affect the form of the spine and later physiological curves. So in the beginning, it's very good if the parents can actually start working on the child breathing and the integrity of the torso. When I say the integrity, I mean how it reacts to pressure. If it's very soft and the stomach is very soft, it will affect weight bearing in one moment, especially when the child starts to sit. Because when the child sit and relax, if this is all very weak, it will just collapse. So when it collapses, it will feel like it's falling even if it's sitting. And then the child will have to use a lot of muscle tension. Then somebody will say, well, the child is using spasticity, but the child is thinking, well, either it's spasticity or not sitting. So basically, it's what we can focus in these things which are in between the muscle activity and control, muscle strength and what the child can control. It's basically that zone in between, how the structure reacts.
And the BDA, is it specifically focused on those with the cerebral palsy disability or various types of disabilities?
We work also quite a lot with the patient, for example, that have muscle dystrophy. I can even show you some videos if you want.
Okay.
We work also with genetical disorder kids. We can work with the kids that have some kind of deformations, like a spina bifida or something like that.
Okay.
So we can work with majority of the patient exactly because tell you the truth, we don't really care about the origin of the problem. We look what is now and how the structure is reacting during the child movement, and we have ways how to change those things.
Now, because I've started an organization a few years ago called Abilities Without Limits, because I've actually realized, you know, when people ask me about my type of disability and I say cerebral palsy, they don't know what cerebral palsy is. And we're about 17 million people globally with cerebral palsy, each one uniquely different from the other. And what I also found out the hard way, basically, especially when I had my back problems, that when I found places to get physiotherapy treatment, or even prior to that, and if my physio wasn't available, when I found places, they would say, I'm sorry, we only see kids with cerebral palsy. So what happens with the adults with cerebral palsy? Are we like falling out of the row? What are we forgotten? What? Because we still need to continue with treatment and exercise. So it's good to know about BDA, because that also opens doors for us, you know, to get a way or a place where we can go to get necessary treatment to give us a better quality of life, basically.
Can I say something, Martha-Marie?
Yes.
I think what you're saying there is very important, and I think it's something that I'd like to highlight for anybody who might be listening, is that usually that they tell you, because the condition is defined so much in neurological terms, they will tell you that there's limits, there's windows of development, and when these windows of development close, then it's sort of finished, you know, then the child can't learn the next thing or go to the next level or whatever, and they sort of cap you, and they say, like, even in my daughter's school, which is a school for cerebral palsy, you know, at some point they stop certain therapies at certain ages. So for example, she doesn't need occupational therapy anymore because they don't think she can benefit from it anymore. But with BDA, the window of opportunity is always open. In fact, BDA can open windows of opportunity for patients, no matter what their age, no matter how severe they are. All you need is a willing pair of hands and a willing person to do the exercises, and you'll be amazed with what you achieve.
Amazing. No. It's meant to be. Excellent.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, like, when I was in the hospital, you had like three groups of therapists which are working with different kids. You had the one which you can say they are in elite place, like in the first floor, you know, and on the first floor they would work with the small kids, like from 1 year or before until about, not sure, about maybe 3, 4 or something like that. And then you had the other one which are working with the patient until about 8, 9. Then you had the third one which are working from about 12 to 18 or something like that. And you see, enthusiasm in these three group of patient or therapists was completely different. Like, for example, the first one, you could see that they are very much like fulfilled with what they are doing, because they can actually see that they can actually see how to say, progress, you know, which is happening in 10 days, 7 days or something like that. Then you have the third one, which also are fulfilled with what they are doing, but not as much as the first group. And the third group, you know, they are not really so much enthusiastic in their work. This is the group which are working already from the kids which are beyond 12 and 18. And there was this term which I hated because I was in this third group. That was one of the reasons why I was not so enthusiastic to stay there. And that terminology was maintaining. Maintaining was basically, let's just keep what the child already have so he don't regress. So you see, when you as a therapist are in the position to think about maintaining and not really progress, then it's kind of, it's not really something that gives you a lot of energy, right, to work. And the question, for example, would be like, Well, why is that? The therapist will say, well, the golden gate for development is closed. Why? Because of the brain plasticity. And that is all just a complete nonsense. Basically, why? Because if you go to the place where people had a brain damage when they are in 40s and 50s, well, this is where the therapists are again very enthusiastic. Why? Because in the beginning, they lose all their functions. They maybe cannot use the arm at all. Some of them cannot walk. And then after a couple of years, they walk again, many of them. So this is basically showing that after the brain damage, even with the later in the life, there is a lot of progress, right, happening. But what happens with the small kids is, you see, they develop the way how they develop structurally. And then when they reach 12, 13 years, their bodies simply do not support all the functions that the therapist would like to impose on them. And it's a new thing. They don't really support that anymore. Their spine is not designed to do these things. Their shoulders, you know, this kind of structures. So then what happens is the therapists have a very big, like a problem, because no matter what he tried to do, simply the child feels it's too much for him. And that basically is that wrong approach, which is completely based on performance, without actually looking the child development as a whole. Can you imagine, like, if the therapist knows something about developmental of the spine, chest, shoulder, these kind of things, which are also very important, how they are supposed to react, and more about the biomechanic. They don't really know so much about the biomechanic. They know about neurological things, like how things kind of, what influence what and which part of the brain do what and this kind of stuff. Of course, look, I'm over exaggerating, you know, I'm a little bit over exaggerating. Not all therapists are like that, but I know what I see, and I know what I see constantly. And in reality, it is like that. If you go into the biomechanic with somebody who is in a neurological department, they don't really think so much about these things so much. If you go with some other guy, which is more in kinesiotherapy, like working with more healthy people, they would know more about what you're talking about. So what happens is when somebody is older, this kind of internal feeling in many therapists of this gate of the opportunities is very narrow, very small. So then, unfortunately, you don't become there a big, how to say, they don't have very much desire to work with the patient which are like you. And the reason for that is because he will try to teach you something, and you did all that already, and in one moment you would know what you can do and what you cannot do, and these things when the person is small and when it's going somewhere and all these therapies are trying to teach and all this kind of stuff, there need to be some other things for the patient also to have motivation to keep doing certain therapies. And this is where basically BDA would focus on not on what you need to do new. We would focus basically how to make your life easier, how to make things for you more, again, I can say energy efficient, but we can say simply easier. And how to come to that? Well, when you make your transitions and when you make your movement and all these kind of things, we look where is the problem, what is really not engaging, where is the gate of opportunity to change some tissue responses, and how to load and deload some structures in your body which are responsible for this kind of feeling of, oh, it's easier and less pain. Basically, that's what we, that's why we have no issues with working with more older people, even with the ones that have pain problems.
Okay. So basically, if in my case where I tend to, my back tends to overcompensate for what my left arm and shoulder and hand is struggling with the BDA treatment, you can guide me more to take that sort of pressure off the back and the neck for my shoulder and arm to basically function better. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Or?
Yeah, it makes sense, but you know,
okay.
We would first look, we would not really divide your left and right side, tell you the truth. You know, we would, both of them are very important. So maybe the gate of opportunities in the areas that you already have. And then, you know, when we look what's going on there, but, you know, we usually start with the relationship between the spine and the chest, how the chest influences the spine, and because, you know, if you want to make some kind of movement in the spine, the chest need to adapt to that properly. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story, if you talk about the hand movement and how you can control your hand and these kind of things, it depends. Do you feel this kind of pain in your arm, which is like undescribed, something which is difficult to describe, like some kind of burning pain in the arm or some discomfort which is coming from there? Then we are connecting that with the poor proprioception, where we would like stimulate your tissue responses, basically work on the connective tissue in order to this kind of proprioceptive organ to have more responses which are going to create a bigger impact on mechanoreceptors and feed the brain with the bigger amount of stimulation, and then make it easier for the brain to process this information. Then this uncomfortable feeling of the hand can go down. Maybe that's the case with some person that have a problem with the arm, like hemiparesis. They could feel this kind of pain, which is annoying. And then by working on that, this can reduce. And then we can look further what's going on with the shoulder. And with the shoulder, we are looking what is the biomechanic in between the shoulder joint and the shoulder blade. What is the rhythm of the movement in the shoulder and the shoulder blade? And then we see what is the rhythm. Then we think about what is the connection with the spine as well. So it's like there is a whole pattern of how things are going. So then we determine what will be the strategies. Will it be the strategy directly on the shoulder joint, or maybe shoulder blade? Or let's just focus more on the spine and the rib cage adaptation to the movement. Because if you move your arm, you want to move your shoulder, your back a little bit. And so if you, these things are, like I said, interconnected. But like I said, I'm talking now like in blind, and every patient have its own nuances.
Now, in here in our side, I'm in Johannesburg in South Africa. Do you have more people currently in Pretoria area, or do you have people in Johannesburg?
We have in Pretoria, in Johannesburg, people are coming from there to Pretoria, and we also have in Cape Town. So we don't really think that it's necessary to have two courses in Joburg and in Pretoria, because it's not so far away.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, basically, it's much more easier from the perspective of organization and many things.
Yes.
Parents come to us.
Okay. And are you in Pretoria about once a year, or how would that work?
In Pretoria, we come 2 times a year.
Twice a year.
And at the moment to Cape Town as well. So we are coming every 6 months. And that's what we were doing continuously from 2016 or 15, not sure, 16.
Okay.
So it's not something which, basically wherever we go, we kind of keep going to that country. Like at the moment I am in Kazakhstan, and we are coming here for about already maybe 5-6 years, every 6 months. So when we come to some country, parents are coming. When I say parents, most of our patients are kids with cerebral palsy. So the parents are really the one that kind of choose us. And when they come, they come to us more often than once, because it's the child is changing, developing, and you also have changes in exercise. So we are coming very regularly.
And the people that you train here to do the treatment, how long does that training take, basically?
It's about 2 days.
2 days, okay.
Usually parents have lecture, which they can do it also online, you know, because of the Corona time, we kind of try to minimize the amount of people which is on one place. So then we have smaller groups where we are teaching the parents, and then and usually 2 days it's more than enough. And they also have a support, the support thing when they go home, the therapist is regularly contacting the parents, asking how things are going, is it everything okay, how the child is developing, do they see some changes and stuff like that. So even online, we can change and adapt the exercises. It can happen that some exercises doesn't work so well from the point of, it could be hard for the one that is doing, like he can say, oh, this is not good for my body, and then we change it. Or it could be that the child change or person change, and then we need to create some changes in the exercise. And then the parents can sometimes send us the video, we can look what's going on with the child, and we can adapt the exercises. We have many video of our exercises that we customly just record on some model for the parents what to do. Then they do it, they record and send us back. We check, is it everything okay, and then keep on working. And for every question, we are available in this period of time.
Okay. No, thank you so much. That was quite insightful, and it's as I said, it's nice to have a go-to for us adults with cerebral palsy, because as Erika also explained, you get to a certain age and you can't go for that sessions, because I'm mainly focused in on the children, but we tend to deal with what we call post syndrome. Basically, when we grow older, obviously our muscles go weaker, our bone structure goes weaker. It's important to stay active and on the go, and to know, okay, what can you do to take the pressure off the weakest point in your body, basically, to give you a better quality of life at the end of the day as well. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what disability you have, it's important to exercise and be on the go. Otherwise, you can deteriorate much quicker.
Yes, I completely agree, and we also have many videos, because the parents that give us the permission, we are making videos of the test how kids are changing. If you want, I can show you some things.
That will be interesting if you can. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen now with you. Hello back, Erika.
Hi, sorry, it was a power thing.
Okay, well.
We could load shedding here.
The power came back on, and then the generator switched off, and then I had to wait for the Wi-Fi to start up. So sorry about that.
I thought that's the case. All right, so kind of prepare some things. So one interesting thing, do you see the screen?
Yes.
All right, so here we can see like one simple test. We raise the child, and when we raise the child, look at the chest here. You can see how it's very soft. So very soft chest is showing that these kind of weaknesses of the chest will definitely influence many things, which I'm going to explain. Then, after some period of time, we do the same thing, and we look how the child chest is going to react to that. So that's that. And then, like we are doing with many kids, very similar thing. You can see here on the left side, that is before. You can see here the weakness of the chest, and here you can see the stronger chest. So that is basically what for us is quite important. And of course, I will explain one of the things why is that so much important. For example, if the child have a very weak chest, as we can see on this video here, look how the child is breathing. When the child inhales the air, you can see here how the chest collapses, the lower ribs expand. So this child with this kind of breathing is not really going to have a very wide chest. So then this chest was also very soft. If you try to press the chest is just going to be very soft. The soft chest then is moving like it's moving here, because when the diaphragm moves down, it creates a negative pressure, almost like not really a vacuum, but something like that. And then if the chest is very soft, it collapses in the middle or here. And then on the right side, you can see a completely different response of the chest, the same child after some period of time, where you can see how the child is breathing after some period of time. So now why is this important? Well, it's important because then this chest is not going to change in the same way. This chest is going to get the volume, it's going to get the size. And that will be very important for many other things, like, for example, mobility of the spine. And then let's talk about the mobility of the spine. We can see, for example, many kids, when they are sitting, they have a tendency to sit on their sacrum. Like they sit and the sacrum is there. So the sacrum is in this position and they cannot really make the lumbar lordosis. After some period of time, we are stimulating for this to become possible for the child, to change the sitting platform. So then another thing is, if for example, in the beginning, we ask from the child, we say the child, look, try to make your back straight. Look at here, Vladimir, my colleague, is saying him, make straight, be straight. Try to make your spine straight. And that is what he is doing. That's how he is responding. And then after about 1 year or something like that, you can see a completely different way of how he's able to do that. So that is, of course, very important for many other things, including the walking as well. And then, you know, that is part about that. But then we are also working with the kids that have even spinal muscle dystrophy. And you can see here the child have difficulties with holding the head, but not only that. Look at this. Look at when the child is holding the head, take notice on the child's chest and the length of the neck and how everything is very narrow, very close. So of course here is a lot of difficulties. This is some of our exercises. In this case, we also work on the child stomach. And then look at this, the same child, but after 4 months. Look at that. Look at the chest here.
Amazing.
Look at the neck here. Completely different. And of course, this is what the function is. The function is following that. This child was actually the one we worked with him directly in our center.
Sure.
Then and maybe also scoliosis. Kids with scoliosis, we have a very good improvements there as well. You can see on the left side, that was before. You can see the curve. You can see the curve after. And here you can see on the video more or less how it looked like. You can see on the left side, here is a hump.
You must just, the child with the dystrophy and the x-rays we can still see. So it's 3 images.
Okay. So it's connecting them. All right. Do you see now this picture?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So here you can see the hump. Here you see quite levelized left and right side. And when you're working on the scoliosis, we are mostly focusing on development of the chest, because it's very important that the child is breathing here, where it's very depressed and soft. And there is some other cases.
I've got a question. I just want to know, of the adult with scoliosis, is there any way, if their back basically deteriorated quite a bit with the scoliosis, and if they start with a BDA, what would the chances be for improvement?
Not as much also, as, like, for example, with the child that is with the child. We don't go in that direction saying we're gonna make somebody straight.
Yeah,
with
of course.
With the child is like a developmental thing. Like you can make a strategy and develop something. With the person that already has scoliosis, we are looking, basically we can make certain changes at some degree, but we try to be realistic, and we go more in the focus of quality of life, how the person is going to live with that scoliosis, how it's, or can it engage that's the same scoliosis and work with that scoliosis in more efficient way.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, there is of course many other videos. We have huge amounts of them, but I think you have an idea what we are.
Yes,
we are
no, definitely.
Yes. So in any case, I would like to thank you for your interest in this therapy. I'm hoping that more people will hear about us and give it a chance, because it's quite, I can say, new approach, and in a way beautiful, because it's really connecting the many parents with their child in another level, not just from the perspective of performance, but from the general development. And people and individuals who are not really kids anymore, I think it's a great therapy for them as well.
Yeah, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And it's quite insightful. And this is information that we can share on our Facebook page, if you don't mind. If you've got any material, you can forward to us by email. I think you've got our email address as well. You're more than welcome to share, and we can always share it on our page.
Thank you very much.
I definitely feel there is a need for people, whether it's parents with children or even adults with disabilities. We connected with quite a lot of people on the disability platform, not only those with cerebral palsy, but muscle dystrophy as well, and spina bifida, and even quadriplegics, that kind of thing. So we can always get the message out to them as well.
I would like to invite you to our course, which is going to be in October. We are going to be in Pretoria, and just please come. I can give you further explanations, and I can we can discuss more.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Martha Marie, I don't know if you would allow me just a minute just to talk about the South African plans, just for, and I won't be long. I just want to let people know sort of where to find us. Is it okay if I quickly share my screen?
Fine by me.
Okay.
What do I need to do?
You need to enable me.
Yes, of course. Okay.
Thank you. What's it there? Okay. My name is Erika Dreves. I'm a family doctor. I live in Cape Town, and my daughter Emma was born 12 years ago, also with a brain injury. At the time, we were living in Europe, and it was for about 2 years, I did the wait and see approach, like Slobodan mentioned. And by the time that she was 2 years old, I realized that I was in very deep trouble. This was photos from the very first time we actually went to the therapy. She was about 23 months old. And she's a quadriplegic, a spastic dystonic, and was extremely unhappy. She had, strabismus of the eyes. She had, the collapse that Slobodan was talking about. She couldn't eat solids. We basically were feeding her from a bottle every day. She wasn't sleeping through the night. She couldn't keep her head up. She couldn't focus on anything, and she was really, really difficult, extremely spastic. You couldn't even get her into a sitting position. And then we started with the exercises, and a year later, this is what she looked like. And it was incredible, the change and the joy, because suddenly she had neck control. She, you can see the iPads there next to her. She was able to look from left to right. She was at that moment looking at a photo of herself, because when the children have the assessments, there's sometimes also a video running with a screen, and she was actually seeing herself on camera and noticing it, where she couldn't notice it even before, and couldn't connect. And she was extremely, her life changed after we started this therapy. She started eating the same way as the rest of the family. We could just go, chop up her food a bit smaller, and she could eat with us. It wasn't special food, traveling around with it anymore and struggling to look after her. She could handle loud noises better. She was just more stable in, more chaotic environments. Before, she would be very, very she would startle and, cry easily and become sick so easily. Anyway, and then her eyes also started improving with BDA, her eyes just kind of went straight within the first 2 years. She still has a slight little strabismus, but it's a lot better. And this is what she looks like now. She is, the photo there on the left was taken at the end of last year, and this was the last assessment about 6 months ago. And as you can see, she's still a quadriplegic, but she has got no, from like about the knees upwards, she's got no obvious deformities. She's got a very strong trunk. She's basically maintaining a sitting position. She's got good neck control. And what that has given her is the ability to actually go to school. She can handle sitting in a wheelchair. She understands 3 languages. She does very, very good, in her assessments. She gets very good marks. And that's all thanks to the foundation that we got from BDA. And also the photo illustrates also that, that there's always something new to do, that it's a journey, and every time we set new goals for her, and then I try and do as much as I can with her, and we try and aim for these goals. What I also wanted to show is something that I'm just really extremely grateful to share, is how straight her back is. A child of her degree of cerebral palsy, at her age, should be having a huge amount of the dysformity. She should be having scoliosis. She should be having hip subluxation, but she doesn't have any of these things. She has got no pain. And I really ascribe that to the therapy that we've been doing with her. So I really want to say to any parent who's out there who's got a diagnosis of a brain injury at birth, don't wait. Don't wait to see what happens. Don't listen to them like I listened to them. Just phone and just start. There's so much you can do. And like Sobran says, even if you just start working on the breathing, there's so much you can achieve. So this is just the last slide I wanted to share. So when we came back to South Africa, I started a not-for-profit called the Fascia Rehabilitation Foundation. That is just really a vehicle to bring BDA to South Africa, to bring the courses to South Africa. Our next course is going to be on between the 9th and the 15th of October. The guys will be flying in on the 9th. They'll be spending a couple of days in Pretoria East, at the Opikopi Guest House. They're going to be doing a group of families there, doing the children's assessments and teaching the families the next exercise routines that they have to do. And then on the 13th, they'll travel to Cape Town, and then they will be here in the mother city to also work on the families here. And I just wanted to share some important links if people were interested. The website, they can contact us through the website, www.fascia-rehab.africa. I also have written a blog about my journey with Emma. If parents want to see sort of what it was like, I started it, I think, in 2014. So it will be sort of our journey written down in a blog form. This is my email address in case people want to contact me. This is my cell phone number in case they want to enroll for the course. Our Facebook page is called CP Solution Africa, but we are also going to be sharing the Zoom with you so that you can put it onto your Facebook page, Abilities Without Limits. Yes, and that's the story from me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so then I think this meeting came to the end, right? Well, there is not much I can say. We also, there is one more thing I could actually say. There is one really interesting thing. Like parents and, potential patient for BDA, they can also get this free consultation. The free consultation can be online. This is where we send the way how to test yourself or the child. And then we can discuss with you and we can analyze your child condition. And we can give some insights which are completely, in many ways, will be a new thing for parents about their kids or for individuals about their own health. And then after that, they can get this better understanding what is this therapy doing and how it can really help. So before they actually decide, because it's definitely a strategy, it's a long-term strategy, it's investment, and we do want to give as much as possible information. So that's another thing which is very good, and we are doing that all over the world. Parents are sending videos of their kids and asking, what about this, what about that, can you help about this? And then we instruct them how to do more tests, and then according to that, we can have a very nice Zoom conference with them and talk for a long time about their kids. So that's another thing which I think is quite interesting that we can offer. Okay. So it was very nice to kind of talk with you, and I hope we see each other in October.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marta Marie. Thank you so much for interviewing us. We're really so grateful that you are also going to be an ambassador for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's they say together we're strong. So yeah, I feel positive, and we can only grow stronger from strength to strength year onwards. Okay.
Thank you.
Exactly.